Hello dear students and welcome back to this History Prelims Revision series. If you are new here, then let me tell you that we at StudyIQ IAS English have started a special series of revision for the history subject. In the first episode of this series, we have discussed key terms from medieval India. You will get the link of that last episode in the description box below. In today's session, we are going to take up key terms from ancient India, which probably UPSC can ask in the Prelims Examination 2023. So without further ado, let us get started. In case you're wondering where you can get updates about my videos, you can follow me on my Telegram channel, Jawwad Kazi UPSC Preparation, and here is the link for it, using which you can join my channel. Now let us see certain previous year's questions, PYQs, where UPSC has asked term-based questions from ancient and early medieval India. Take a look at this example from 2020. UPSC had asked this question with reference to history of India. The terms Kulyavapa and Dronavapa denote which of the following? Now the purpose of showing these questions is not to delve deeper into PYQs. It is only to substantiate the fact that UPSC is known to ask term-based questions. Kulyavapa and Dronavapa are terms that were used for measurement of land. Okay? Based on these questions, we'll get an idea regarding from which themes and what types of questions UPSC can ask based on key terms. Okay, let's take the next question. With reference to cultural history of India, consider the following pairs. Here again, you are given certain terms and their meanings, and you have to identify which of them are correctly matched. Parivrajaka, which means renunciant and a wanderer, that's the first term given. Shramana, priest with a high status. Upasaka, lay follower of Buddhism. Now here the term Parivrajaka is right, renunciant and wanderer, but the term Shramana was wrong. Shraman is not a priest with a high status. Instead, Shraman is an ascetic who has given up worldly life in the search for ultimate truth. So the second pair is wrong over here. The third pair, Upasaka or lay follower, is correct, and this is how you could reach the answer. Let us see a few more examples. With reference to cultural history of India, which of the following is the correct description of the term paramitas? Here UPSC specifically has used the word term. The term paramita is explained by which of these following options? So here paramitas basically mean perfections whose attainment led to the Bodhisattva path. We are going to discuss religion and philosophy in a separate video, so don't worry about that. Right now, just note the type of areas from which questions are coming. Let's see one more question here. With reference to forced labor or Vishti in India during the Gupta period, which of the following statements is correct? So 4 statements are given to you regarding this practice of Vishti, and you are supposed to identify which one of them is correct. It was considered as a source of income for the state, a sort of a tax paid by the people. Statement number 1. It was totally absent in Madhya Pradesh and Kathiawar region of the Gupta Empire. The forced labor was entitled to weekly wages, and the eldest son of the laborer was sent as forced laborer. So 4 statements are given over here. Let me just tell you how you can approach this kind of a question. Now UPSC will definitely throw some bouncers at you, and you will not be prepared with the content of the question. But that does not mean that you give up immediately. You can apply logic, elimination to reach to the answer. Now let us see what options you could eliminate from here. Look over here at option B. It was totally absent in Madhya Pradesh and Kathiawar region of Gupta Empire. Now, the usage of the word totally absent should raise some doubts in your mind. Now, Madhya Pradesh and Saurashtra or Kathiawar region is a significant part of the empire, and using the term totally absent should raise some doubts in your mind. Now, this is not a rule per se, but at times there is a likelihood that absolute statements turn out to be wrong. In history, it is very difficult to say with such complete certitude that such and such thing exists or does not exist. Okay? So that's why negative statements, especially with absolute kind of wordings, they generally tend to be wrong. Now, please remember, this is not a rule per se. This is just a rule of thumb for you to ponder upon. So B is definitely a wrong statement over here. Next, C, the forced laborer was entitled to weekly wages. This also seems to be a far-fetched statement, because how would a forced laborer be entitled to wages on a weekly or whatever basis? Then that defeats the basic term forced labor itself. Okay. So answer option B and answer option C can definitely be eliminated. This leaves you with two alternatives, A and D. Now, once you are past this stage, if you have eliminated two options, then the probability of getting it right increases by 50%. So either you go with A or D, there's a 50% likelihood that you will get it right, obviously. So in that case, you can take an educated guess. Here the answer option A. It was considered as a source of income for the state. There were 8 different sources of income for the state during this time, and one of them was this forced labor also. Okay, so answer option was A. Next, with reference to cultural history of India, the memorizing of chronicles, dynastic histories, epic tales was the profession of who of the following? So they are asking you a professional category of people. Okay, which of this category's profession was memorizing dynastic histories, epic tales, so on and so forth? Now, take a look at the answer options. Shramana, Parivrajaka. These are two terms that were repeated in the subsequent year in the form of pairs. So a student who had thoroughly seen the PYQ of 2016 will very easily be able to answer that question of 2020. This is the beauty of previous year's questions in UPSC civil services. Now, we know what is meant by Shramana. We already saw that. So he is an ascetic. Now, why will an ascetic try to do all of these things? Obviously not. Parivrajaka, he is a wanderer in Buddhism. So he also does not have this kind of a role. So two options are straight away eliminated for you. Probability of getting it right now out of these two is obviously 50%. So you can take a educated guess over here. Agraharika is a very important term. We must know about it. These were land grants that were given to individual Brahmins or group of Brahmins. Starts from South India. This is the kernel of Indian feudalism. Later on, this is going to manifest in its full form in early medieval part. So Agraharika is not connected with what is described in the question. The answer is answer option D, Magadha. Okay? This is how term-based questions can be asked, and if you know the terms, it becomes easy to fetch those marks. Let's see one more question. With reference to religious history of India, consider the following statements. The concept of Bodhisattva is central to Hinayana sect of Buddhism. Bodhisattva is a compassionate one on his way. He is not yet reached there, but he is on his way to enlightenment. Bodhisattva delays achieving his own salvation to help all sentient beings on their path to it. Now, Buddhism, Jainism, they are sects, concepts, ideas, terms. These are very popular areas with UPSC. And therefore, we are going to see almost all the important terms associated with these religions, philosophies, etc. Bodhisattva is actually not central to Hinayan, it is central to Mahayana sect of Buddhism. So statement number 1 is wrong, whereas statement number 2 and 3 both are right. That gets you to the right answer, answer option B. Chaliye, let's take one last example. In the context of history of India, consider the following pairs. Eeri Patti, land revenue from which was set apart for maintenance of the village tank. Eeri Patti. Tanayurs, villages donated to single Brahmins or group of Brahmins. Now again, see the beauty of UPSC's questions. Villages donated to a single Brahmin or a group of Brahmins was Agrahara, okay, and that is repeated in the subsequent year in another form. So candidate who has seen this thoroughly will very easily be able to answer the question in the following year. So Tanayur is wrong over here. Tanayur basically means an individual village which is considered as a revenue unit. That is a Tanayur. So statement 2 is not rightly matched. Ghatikas, colleges generally attached to temples. This is also correct. Ghatikas were colleges where pupils could be educated in basic literacy, numeracy, and a little bit of spirituality and philosophy. So Ghatikas are associated with that. Statement number 3 is right. Statement number 1 is right. And that leaves you with answer option D. Even if you are sure about this 2 not being wrong, being wrong, then you can clearly eliminate 2 options straight away. And once you have eliminated these 2 options, you know for sure that third one is right. So you have to take a call only on this, number 1, Eeri Patti. This is exam technique, guys. This is how you reach to the answer. I hope you're getting this. Chali, having got that through, now let us get into specific terms that we must know from ancient India. And we will go period wise while discussing these terms. Let us first discuss key terms from the Vedic period. We have textual references from this period, and based on that we come across many terms which the Aryans used. Let us see some of these terms. Yava during Rig Vedic times meant barley. So it was part of the staple diet. Yava meant barley. Vrihi, Tandoor and Sali, all of these are used for rice. Bali was the term used for voluntary offerings. During the early Vedic period, guys, the society was pastoral and the economy was based on gift economy. And the essence of this gift economy was the practice of Bali, that is voluntary offerings. These offerings were given by the common folk to the elites of that group. That practice is called as Bali. Then some metals were definitely known. So that's why the term IAS is used in Rig Veda. And it means basically metal, but mostly it is copper or bronze because that is what is used at that stage. But later on, as the society evolves, its knowledge of technology improves, we see that there is a specific term used, Krishna or Shama Ayas. It is the same term Ayas, but now it is with the prefix Krishna or Shama Ayas, and that means iron. In later Vedic phase, when iron is used, we have a specific term for that, Krishna or Shama Ayas. Next term is Jana. Jana basically meant tribe. Of course, you know the term Mahajanapada. So the core or kernel of that term Mahajanapada is over here, that is Jana, tribe. And the ruling elite of this tribe were called as Rajana. Okay? Jana se hi evolve ho raha hai Rajana. They are the heads of the tribes or ruling elites. Samiti Sabha Vidhata Gana. Samiti Sabha Vidhata Gana. What are all of these? These are nothing but tribal or clan based assemblies which discharge different types of functions for that society. Samiti, Sabha, Vidhata, Gana. Next term that we come across is Visha. Visha means clan. Okay? Clan is a group of people who have some kinship association over generations. That is called as a clan, and the Aryans referred to it as Visha. The head of the Visha is called as Vishapati. Now this term Pati basically means like a protector. Okay? So clan ka jo head hai, he is called as Vishapati. He is heading the clan. Kuda is a term used for family, and the head of the family is called as Kulapa, and later on he will also be called as Kulapati in a subsequent era. So that same suffix of Pati is used with Kuda also, but not in this stage, at a later stage. Grihapati. Okay. Another term with the suffix Pati here. Grihapati is the head of the family. Griha, usi se aage, if you connect it with Pati, Grihapati becomes head of the family. Chali, let's take some more terms from Vedic period. Gramani was the head of the village or fighting horde. Head of the village or the fighting horde. Now, the early Vedic society, as we noted, was a pastoral nomadic society, and consequently, people were organized in tribes, and these tribes often had conflicts. Now, for these conflicts, naturally, leaders were required, and Gramani was a term that is used for one such leader. Vrata, Gana, Grama, and Saradha, these are all fighting hordes that were part of the society. To protect your cattle, to protect the pasture land, to defend against attacking tribes, these societies obviously required, a martial kind of a horde to protect or to attack also. And for that reason, many such terms were used, such as Vrata, Gana, Grama, and Saradha. Okay? And from this same term Grama, we come across another derived term, which is Sangrama, which is clash between tribes. Sangrama, clash between these hordes. Vrajapati was the head of the pasture land. See, it is your economy that in many ways shapes your culture. In this phase, since the Aryans were pastoral nomadists, protection of pasture land was very, very crucial for them. And therefore, somebody had to have that responsibility, and we had an official called as Vrajapati for that purpose. Again, you come across the term Pati or protector here again. Then Sangrihitri, treasurer. Sangrihitri, treasurer, a collection. Spasas, spies. Since there was internecine conflict that was taking place, intelligence was always crucial. Intelligence about different type of things. And for that purpose, we had spies who were termed as spasas. Bhagdugha. Bhagdugha in later Vedic period is collector of taxes. Bhag. Okay? Bhagdugha derived from the term Bhaga is collector of taxes. Then we also come across the terms Nishka, Shatamana, and Krishnala. Nishka, Shatamana, and Krishnala. All of these mean different things which are quite similar to one another. They could mean pieces of gold, which has a lot of intrinsic value, of course. They could be gifting objects, or they could also be a means of exchange in the form of a coin. So these terms, Nishka, Shatamana, and Krishnala, they can have multiple meanings in the Vedic society. Okay. Now there are some interesting terms which revolve around the concept of cattle. The root word is Gau, and from that we see many terms are derived. So Gavishti or Gaviyat meant conflict or battles. Since cattle was the primary, you can say, property, there was obviously conflict related to it. and consequently fight over this was referred to as Gavishti or Gaviyat. A Gomat meant a person who was very wealthy, who had obviously a lot of cattle. Gomat. Gopati. Okay. Again, see protector as a suffix. Protector of cows. Gopati. Okay. Gavayuti meant distance. This is very interesting. Gavayuti means distance and Godhuli is measure of time. So time and distance also are being measured using the same root word. Gavayuti and Godhuli are derived from it. And this is the most interesting of all. Duhitra. Duhitra. Now Sanskrit is also derived from the same Indo-European roots. And therefore, we see some commonality in terms of words used in European languages. Duhitra means daughter. You might see that in terms of phonetics, it sounds quite similar. Duhitra, daughter. It means one who milks the cow. One who milks the cow is referred to as Duhitra, meaning daughter. Okay? Gotra means kinship. Gotra, a term that is used to this date in our modern times also, originally and even today, basically means people who share kinship ties. Now that may go back to centuries, because that's when the idea, millennia rather, that is where the idea has emerged of Gotra, sharing of kinship ties. Now let us see some professions, economic activities related terms. Since UPSC has asked some terms related to this area, we will see that from Vedic period. The first profession is Rathakar or chariot maker. Now the person who made chariots, Rath banane wala, Rathakar was a very important profession for the Vedic Aryans. Why so? Because the Ratha was the primary or most important weapons platform for them. Even in our modern times, guys, a weapons platform, whether it is a bomber plane, whether it is a frigate ship, a weapons platform has three essential things. It has firepower, it has mobility, and it has armor or protection. Three things essentially. A Rath also has these three things. It has firepower, it has mobility, and it has some level of protection for the Sarthi and for the warrior. So Rath was the most advanced weapons platform of that time, and therefore the builder of the Rath was a very important profession. He's called as Rathakar. And again derived from that same root word of Rath is Sarathi. Sarathi. Who is a Sarathi? Who is basically a charioteer, who is actually driving that particular Rath. Okay. He is also referred to as a Suta. Then Vaya meant weaver. Hiranyakar was a goldsmith. Kulal was a potter. Tashta was a carpenter. And Karmara was a blacksmith. So these are the terms that we come across based on professions during this period. Some more words. Brahmavadinis. Brahmavadinis were women Vedic scholars. As I'm sure you know, women, especially in the early Vedic period, had a fairly high status in the society, and we come across several examples of women who were scholars of Vedas, and such women were referred to as Brahmavadinis. Then there are two terms that are used for literature. Shruti literature and Smriti literature. So what is this Shruti and Smriti literature? Shruti literature refers to literature that is heard, whereas Smriti refers to literature that is remembered. What is heard and what is remembered. Now Shruti literature includes your Vedas and Upanishads. So they were heard, meaning here that these are divine creations and human beings have heard it. Whereas Smriti literatures, they are remembered literatures and they include Vedangas, Puranas and epics. The epics are also part of Smriti literature. So do remember the difference between Shruti and Smriti. A lot of students know it, but they get confused which one is Shruti, which one is Smriti, and what falls under what. So there can be statement-based questions related to this. Chaliye, these were terms associated with Vedic period. Now let us see terms from the age of Buddha. Now, age of Buddha is a very favorite area of UPSC to ask questions in prelims, as we have seen in examples also. A lot of terms and other concepts have been asked by UPSC. So let us see some of the important ones. The first term, Buddha, means an enlightened one. Buddha is a person who has achieved enlightenment, who has achieved nirvana, who has achieved the knowledge about the ultimate truth. Such a person is called as Buddha. Now, there are some terms associated with the life of Buddha that we must know. First in that is Mahabhinishkramana. Mahabhinishkramana. That event is Buddha's renunciation of the worldly life. Now, you all know that before becoming the great Buddha, he was Prince Siddhartha. He was born into a life of luxury. He did not know any pain and sufferings. But when he was exposed to pain and suffering in human life, that is when he realized that he wanted to go out and seek the ultimate truth. He renounces his worldly life. That event of renunciation is called as Mahabhinishkramana. That is the first, you can say, term associated with Buddha's life. Next is Nirvana. Nirvana, obviously, you would know, means enlightenment. Okay? A state where you come to terms with the ultimate truth. That is Nirvana. Okay? If you have not prepared well, then on 23rd, on this Sunday, when you appear for prelims examination, UPSC is going to give you this, Nirvana. You will understand very fundamental questions about human life in the exam hall. Okay, that was just on a lighter note. Next term, Dhamma Chakra Parivartan. Dhamma, it's the Pali form of the Sanskrit term Dharma. Dhamma Chakra, the wheel. Parivartan means turning. So the turning of that Dharma or religious wheel. What is that event? That is the first sermon that Buddha gave at Sarnath after achieving Nirvana. Okay? That event is termed as Dharma or Dhamma Chakra Parivartan. Then Mahaparinirvana. Mahaparinirvana is when Buddha passes away. That is the death of Buddha in his physical form. So these are the events associated with his life. Then there are certain sects that evolved after his death. We must know about those sects. A separate full lecture is coming up on this, but let me just briefly tell you the important ones. The first sect that we must know is Hinayan, which also means lesser vehicle. Hinayan. Hinayan and Mahayan were the splits that took place in Buddhism within a few centuries of Buddha's death. The difference of opinion was based on interpretation of what Buddha has said. People who subscribed to the Hinayanist school believed that what Buddha has said has to be seen literally, whereas the Mahayana school felt that it is the essence that is more important than the words. So that's where the first schism starts. Hinayan, lesser vehicle, and Mahayan, which means the greater vehicle. Later on, we come across another school, Vajrayana. Now, Vajra means a thunderbolt. This Vajrayana has become popular in Tibet, in China, and in some other parts of Southeast Asia, East Asia. The school is Vajrayana. We'll see the details of all of this in a separate lecture. Now, some more terms that evolve in Buddhism later. Chaityas. What are Chaityas? Chaityas are halls of Buddhist worship. Place where the Buddhists offer their prayers. Vihars are dwellings. These are like dormitories or places where the Buddhist monks, the bhikshus, live. Bhikshus are Buddhist monks who have given up on worldly desires and they go about preaching the ideas of Buddhism. They are called as bhikshus. Upasaka, we have seen this term UPSC has asked, so I'll not go into it. It means a lay follower. And similarly, Parivrajaka also, UPSC has asked, we've seen that example. Panchaskandha or Khanda. This is an important idea of Buddhism. Panchaskandha or Khanda. What does this mean? It means that an individual, a human being, is an aggregate of 5 different things. We only see the physical form of him. Like on the camera or in the video, you're seeing me, the physical person. But it is not just my physical being that is me. There are other things also which together add up to the person that I am. What are these 5 things? The first in that is called as body or rupa. Body, of course, is the translation. Rupa is the technical term for it. It's your physical existence. That is one. I want you to remember this. One. Second is Vedana or feelings. So you exist as a physical person. Then you have some feelings or Vedana. That is the second part of it. Third is Sanna, which means perception. Perception क्या है? आपका देखने का नजरिया किसी चीज को, ठीक है? That is your perception. जैसे आपका एक physical existence है, उसके साथ साथ में आपके कुछ emotions हैं, and along with that you also have certain way of looking at things. That is your perception. Fourth is your mental conditioning or what we call as sanskar. So you have been trained to think or act in certain manner right from your childhood days. These are your sanskars. You might have very often seen elders using this word. ये आपके संस्कार दिखाता है. This shows your values. That is your mental conditioning, the way you act in different situations. Fifth is awareness or consciousness, which is called as vinyana. Vinyana. Now, Sanskrit and Pali, there is a slight differentiation in words. That is why I have given you both over there. So these are the 5 levels at which individual exists, or collectively, this is what makes a person. That is called as Pancha, Skandha or Khanda. Now, let's see some more terms with Buddhism. Bodhi means awakening, enlightenment. And from this itself is derived the term Buddha. Bodhi to Buddha. The person is Buddha, the state is Bodhi. Then who is a Bodhisattva? See, UPSC has asked this recently. Who's a Bodhisattva then? Bodhisattva is an individual who is seeking that enlightenment, that Bodhi. Okay? He is on the path of it, but he delays it according to Mahayana so that he can help others. He is not selfish, he is compassionate. He wants to help others before he crosses the finish line. Okay? A selfish person will want to cross the finish line first, whereas he waits for others to achieve it. Now, there are different Bodhisattvas in Buddhism. We'll see some of them here. The most famous is Avalokiteshwar. Avalokiteshwar. Avalokiteshwar, the literal meaning of this word is one who looks down in compassion. Avalokiteshwar. He is the most famous Bodhisattva. He is basically famous or well known for his virtue of compassion for others. Now, what does he do out of this compassion? He hears the cries of sentient beings. Means those individuals who are seeking that Bodhi, they are yearning for it. And this Bodhisattva, Avalokiteshwar, he listens to the cries of all such beings. Okay? And he works tirelessly to help such beings to achieve it. That is the role of Avalokiteshwar. In China, he is called as Guanyin. And the meaning of that also comes from the same meaning in Buddhism here. Perceiver of all sounds. Since he hears the sound of the yearners, in Chinese he is called as Guanyin, which also means the same, perceiver of all sounds. He is hearing to everybody. One of his avatar is called as Padmapani. That is the most famous avatar of Avalokiteshwar. If you take up any book on art and culture, you will see the famous painting of Avalokiteshwar Padmapani from Ajanta. You will see it everywhere. It's a very famous painting because he is holding a lotus, which is called as Padma in Sanskrit. The same word used in other languages also. That's why he's called as Padmapani. Avalokiteshwar Padmapani. Another interesting attribute of Avalokiteshwar is that there can be female manifestations of it also. Avalokiteshwar can have female manifestation as well. Where do we find all of this information about him? We get it in Lotus Sutra of Mahayana Buddhism. Lotus Sutra, remember this term, of Mahayana Buddhism. So if you know all of these things, then you would be able to answer that question of UPSC where it had said that Bodhisattvas is essential feature of Hinayana Buddhism. That statement was wrong. If you know this, Mahayana Buddhism's role in the idea of Bodhisattvas, then that statement was very easy for you to get. Let's take a few more Bodhisattvas. The next one that we must know is Manjushri, also part of Mahayana Buddhism, and he personifies wisdom and knowledge. Wisdom and knowledge. The literal meaning of this term is gentle glory. Gentle glory. After Manjushri, the next one is Maitreya. Now, Maitreya is going to appear in future. Now, all religion have these sort of concepts where a future savior is going to come for humanity. And in Buddhism, we do come across a similar idea in the form of Manjushri, where he is an Bodhisattva who will come in future and he will be the successor of Gautam Buddha. So this begs the question then, if he is going to come in future, then where is he now? So according to Buddhist sources, he is in a heaven called as Tushita heaven. And he is waiting for the time to come on earth. After coming on earth, he will achieve enlightenment. And then like Buddha, Gautam Buddha, he is going to teach Dhamma, Dharma. And that's how the idea goes. Laughing Buddha that we often see in popular literature culture is just a manifestation of Maitreya. The last Bodhisattva here is Vajrapani. The term Vajra we have noted earlier also means thunderbolt. And a person who is holding a thunderbolt, obviously one can understand is having some element of force to his being. So here he is like a protective deity around Buddha. His name is Vajrapani. Vajrapani. Okay. A few economic terms from that day and age. During the age of Buddha is also the period of second urbanization in India. And therefore trade, commerce, all of that was flourishing. So in cities, the merchant streets were referred to as Vesas, merchant street. Then we come across court officials who are called as Mahamatras. Mahamatras. Ayuktas. The term Ayukta is often used even in our modern day languages, vernacular languages. Ayukta meant state official. Then Bali Sadhakas, the same root word guys here, Bali, which we had seen in Vedic period. Now it comes with the suffix Bali Sadhaka. Who is that person? He is the collector of Bali. Now that Bali, unlike in Vedic period, which was voluntary, has now become compulsory. That is the difference. Bali Sadhaka is collecting that Bali which is not voluntary, it is now compulsory. Society has evolved. In the pastoral society was relatively simple, state functions were relatively simple. Now it's a sedentary society, institution building is taking place, so tax has to be levied and collected. Bali Sadhaka is the official for that. Then we come across Shaulkika and Shaulkadhyaksha, who are toll officers. Now, as I mentioned, we are in the phase of second urbanization. First was obviously IBC, and then during the age of Buddha, we see phase of second urbanization, means long distance trade, goods are plying, so naturally tolls can be levied. So we have an official for that, Shaulkika or Shaulkadhyaksha. Then Bhandagarika is the treasurer. Naturally, all of this tax that is collected has to be deposited in one place. There has to be somebody given the responsibility for it, and we have Bhandagarika for it. So here are the terms or officials associated with the state in that age. Now, a few terms related to Jainism. We are going to see the philosophy of it in a separate lecture. Just a few terms we must know here. The term Jaina is derived from the root word Jina, which means conqueror. Okay, Jina means conqueror. So the essence is that the person who has conquered his own self. Now, his own self means what? His earthly desires. Okay? He is called as a Jina or conqueror. Mahavir is called as Mahavir, the great Veer, because he has conquered his own desires. That's the root or term. And it's a beautiful idea that you achieve victory over your own self. That is the biggest thing that you can do in the world. That is Jina or conqueror. Then comes Kevalin. The soul that has achieved that status is called as a Kevalin, a liberated soul, which is free from the bondage, which is free from desires, which has achieved that moksha, is a liberated soul called as Kevalin. Then lastly, Santhara. This is a practice amongst the Jains, which often also has come in news every few years. Santhar is the practice of consciously reducing the intake of food so that ultimately the person can end one's life and achieve the ultimate moksha. So this is Santhara. Chandragupta Maurya is known to have done that after renouncing his throne and building the biggest empire that the subcontinent had seen till that point of time. He renounces, goes to South India, Shravanbelagula in Karnataka, and he, in this process, he ends his life. That is Jainism ke kuch terms. Now let us see some terms associated with the Mauryas. Tirthas in Mauryas were high-ranking officials. High-ranking officials of Mauryas. Dhamma Mahamatras. We have seen this term already, Mahamatra. Okay. Dhamma Mahamatra means state official appointed for promotion of Dhamma. They are called as Dhamma Mahamatras. Pradeshika, Rajuka and Yukta. Okay. Pradeshika, Rajuka, Yukta, these are district level officials. You would see that in our vernacular languages, very often Ayukta is a term used for the municipal commissioner these days. So origin somewhere lies in age of Buddha times, Yukta, district officials during Mauryan times as well. Sita Adhyaksha, term derived from two, Sita plus Adhyaksha. Sita refers to agriculture over here, and Sita Adhyaksha was the person in charge of agriculture, superintendent of agriculture. Samasta Adhyaksha. Samasta Adhyaksha. Who is Samasta Adhyaksha? He is the superintendent of markets. Samasta Adhyaksha. Dushta Amatya. Combined together, Dushtamatya. As the root word tells, evil official. Amatya is an official, Dushtamatya, evil official. Then we have certain coins. UPSC has asked some questions based on currency also. We've seen that example in our last lecture in medieval. Pana was a silver coin. Pana, silver coin. Masika was a copper coin. Masika, copper coin. And Kakani was a quarter of a Masika. So Pana, Masika, Kakani, these are all coins. Now this again, guys, should tell you that how the economy has evolved. Now you have settled societies, agriculture, trade and commerce, urbanization. Naturally, you need proper exchange. So you can see evolution of currency, Spana, Masika, Kakani, all of these things come about. So your economy is also, evolving. Now, Adhyakshas, there were 27 superintendents of different departments. During Maurya period, they were referred to as Adhyakshas. Samaharta was the chief officer for revenue of the state. Chief officer for revenue. Just like in Buddha's age of Buddha we had seen earlier, we have both these officials. There we had Bhagadugha. Okay? Now here we have Samaharta and Sannidhata. Then we had Sangrihitri. Sannidhata is Chief Treasury Officer. Astinomoi and agronomoi, these are terms that we see in Megasthenes Indica. Megasthenes was the ambassador of Seleucus, who's a Greek ruler, ambassador of Seleucus at the court of Chandragupta Maurya, whom he refers to as Sandrocotus. And he left back his source or his book called as Indica. That Indica has not survived in full, but its parts are quoted by subsequent authors. So based on that, we come across these two terms, which meant Astinomoi meant municipal administrative official. Megasthenes had come to Patliputra, he had seen the grandeur of that imperial town, and he has elaborately mentioned about it. And he talks about municipal official called as Astinomoi. He also talks about other officials who have multiple functions like collection of revenue, supervision of irrigation, judicial administration, and maintenance of roads, that is agronomoi. That's what he refers to it as. So multiple and specialized type of functioning of the state. Now let us see early medieval terms. Early medieval period, the characteristic feature of early medieval period is the evolution of feudalism in India. Land assignment based organization of polity, economy and society. Land assignment based. Okay? That is called as feudal system. In ancient India, these feudal lords were called, in early medieval part, they are referred to as Samanta. Samanta. Then Aprabhansha means corrupt languages. Interaction of, the mother language, that is Sanskrit, with other local variants that creates corrupt languages which are called as Aprabhansha. Bhukti meant province. Bhukti is province. Below it comes Mandala or Vishaya. Mandala or Vishaya. Head of the Vishaya is Vishayapati. Again, see that term, Pati. Vishayapati is the head of the district. And below the Vishaya is Pattala. So here are the administrative divisions for the polity. You have Mandala, you have Vishaya, you have Pattala. Okay. Then there are people called as Gram Mahajan or Mahattara. This UPSC has asked this term. Mahattara. Gram Mahajan and Mahattara. Who are these people? They are village elders. Village elders. Okay, respected people in the rural society. Now see, why village elders? Why is this becoming important here? We have entered early medieval period where feudalism is important. That's the central feature of the polity, economy, society. And in feudalism, we have ruralization of the economy, society, etc. And therefore, we come across special term for village elders. Why this term is becoming important? You have to understand the flow of history. Okay, ruralization की वजह से. Then Nadagavundas and Desagramakutas, they are hereditary revenue officials in Deccan. NCRT based term, Nadagavundas and Desagramakutas. Okay, lastly, we'll see some terms associated with the Cholas. Ur, Sabha and Mahasabha, these were terms used for rural assemblies. The Cholas are extremely famous for their village assemblies, the level of delegation of power, the specialization of their functioning, the nature which goes towards democracy of those assemblies. All of that makes them very remarkable for their time. Okay? Some terms used for such assemblies were Ura, Sabha and Mahasabha. Now this term Ura is used till this date in some parts of South India. Ura often means village. Agrahara, this is the term that UPSC had asked in PYQ. We have seen that. Agrahara were Brahmin villages. So land grants were given to Brahmins, and around those grants a village develops, that is called as Agrahara. Nagaram is assembly of merchants. Nagaram. Then polity is arranged in this manner. Mandalam means province, and below the Mandalam comes Nadu or Valanadu. Mandalam and Nadu or Valanadu. Last term from Chola period, Tirumarai. These are writings of Nayanar and Alvar saints. Nayanars and Alvar saints from South India, they are really the, you can say, founders of the Bhakti cult or movement in the country. Okay? From their songs, devotional songs, the Bhakti movement has evolved. Okay? So they have a fundamental contribution over there. They are Shaivites and Vaishnavites and a very important role in the history of Bhakti movement in India. Their writings are referred to as Tirumarai. So that concludes, guys, our discussion on important terms from ancient and early medieval India. By no means this is an exhaustive list, but I have tried to curate and give you at least the most important ones so that you can revise them effectively. You can get the PDF of this presentation on my Telegram channel, Jawwad Kazi UPSC Preparation. Thank you very much. I'll see you in my next video of this revision series. Good day.